Yes, guys, welcome back. Another episode of Teams Like Brighton podcast. Not as cheery as I hope to be on a Monday afternoon, Richie. Let's just go for it. Right, let's just try and get this out of the way and done with as soon as we possibly can and just move on. What are your thoughts on the game?
It was just a classic smash and grab, wasn't it? Like the archetypal thing where Brighton dominated 65% possession, 21 shots to Fulham's 5, maybe. And somehow they lost 1-0. I mean, it really reminded me of that. Sorry to bring us up, that horrible game at the AMEX in lockdown when Brighton lost 2-1 to Crystal Palace despite having, 99% of the game. It was just so frustrating. Fulham were very solid defensively, likes of Tim Ream and Diop, very good. I thought Tete did actually a very good job on Mitoma on the whole, which is not something that many can say that they've done this season when facing the Japanese star. But for me, the overriding emotion was just frustration at Fulham's approach, in the sense that this is a team. Obviously, in the end, you could say it worked beautifully because they came away with the 3 points. But just from what I'd seen from Fulham in the reverse fixture, the 2-1 win at Craven Cottage, and how they've gone about themselves this season, they seem to be quite a good team to watch in terms of attacking output and some of the players they've got. But it was just it was like when Aston Villa came to the Amex in November. It was just time wasting, everyone going down really, really easily. So many, they're not feigning, but there was so many head injuries, and it was just. And then the referee Darren England was pretty poor in terms of keeping on top of that and clamping down on that time wasting. No yellow cards, or just lots of questionable officiating going on in terms of getting just decisions wrong, arguably. It left a real sour taste after that. And for a team who are now ahead of Brighton in the league, I hoped for better from them. But it's it really did annoy me, to be honest. What about you?
Yeah, I think this is the first time this season where I've just come out of a game and I'm totally frustrated with what I've seen. Look, it's like I said that after the Aston Villa match, like, gamesmanship works, and it works well if you set yourself up well and you play your cards right with it. It worked with Villa, and it's worked for Fulham. Do I like it? Not at all. But then again, if it was my other team, I would love it, because I would talk about it being housery at its finest, and we've managed to get one up against a better team. It is annoying the fact that immediately when Fulham players were going down and then they started moving up to their heads, and then the referee had to just jump in and stop play and say, "Oh, it's a head injury." There needs to be a protocol in place where I think one of them actually had a couple of head injuries. So why wasn't the concussion protocol brought into question? If it was 2 head injuries, that's something that needs to be negotiated. But I'll leave that to people's interpretations of what they saw in that match. I don't like to ref bash. I really don't, because being a referee myself, I sympathise with them a lot. But I felt Darren England didn't have his best game as a referee.
Yeah.
I felt the manner he approached the game at the start, he needs to change a lot earlier. I think when you could see in the first 10 minutes how this match was going to play out, and for referees, you need to officiate a certain style whenever you get a feel for that type of match. Darren England didn't do that until the second half. So to do that so late, it is really hard to A, get awarded for your consistency, and B, have control of the match, which are 2 very, very crucial things that you need as a referee. Those are the things you're going to get marked on. But that just didn't seem to happen. Yeah, Fulham got, I think, 5 yellow cards by the end of it, which were justified, but I do think that the referee still needed to intervene a lot earlier. I think there were a couple of instances in the first half that warranted yellow cards, and I feel like if he did it earlier, we would be talking about a different game where there'll be 10 or 9 players sent. Fulham could have been down to 9 or 10 men. But
that would have been
look,
something if we had 10 or 9 players sent off. That would have really
yeah, that would be really interesting, wouldn't it? No, look, there could have been a couple of red cards really just for the antics that were on show and the way the game was played out by both sides. We were guilty of it a couple of times in the midfield, despite ourselves just trying to play that a certain way. But I could go and just say that it's all Fulham's fault. But at the end of the day, we had great chances, fantastic chances, and
do you really think we did? I don't think Brighton actually did enough to really.
We had the key chances. We had some really good. We had 2 cracking chances early on. 2 cracking chances. Solly March had a great effort, and I think it was Evan Ferguson had one before that. And you just got the feeling then that we'll go, perfect, we're up for this now. And it just seemed like as if it got sucked out through Fulham's tactics, which works well, fair play to them. But I do feel like we had some great chances. You know, Undav setting up Buonanotte in the second half. Watching that over, I'm convinced Undav was onside.
Really?
So
I thought he was quite clearly offside for that one.
The clip that I've seen, he looked like he was on, but I might have to review it. But who knows? Like at this point, who knows? We don't know. I don't think many VAR officials actually know what they're doing sometimes at the best of times, it seems. I think the main thing we really need to talk about, and I don't think it's been talked about enough, is Mitoma. Mitoma was clearly fouled in the box. I don't know how the referee or VAR didn't look at the potential penalty there on Mitoma when he went past the defender, and the defender's clearly grabbing onto Mitoma's shirt, counteracting him to try and press on for the ball, as he usually does. And then he falls down, but the referee waves play on because the defender got the faintest of touches on the ball. To me, he overwhelmingly got more of the man than the ball. And he quite clearly gains an unfair advantage. It's a clear infringement. It's a foul. It's a penalty kick. And I don't know how VAR didn't look into that. And I don't know what the referee saw to deem it as fair, because quite clearly Mitoma was restricted in his movement. So
yeah, there was obviously, I mean, I think that maybe got a little bit less like reaction or coverage or whatever at the time, compared to obviously Joel Veltman had a penalty shout. But actually, interestingly enough, he himself said after the game that it was not a penalty. He actually spoke to Darren England later, and not that long after the incident, and basically told him what happened and said, like, you know, it wasn't a dive, but it's kind of instinct to sort of legs there. Sometimes you could go over it. And he actually said, well, apparently England said, well done to him for his honesty. But yeah, I think there's also was it on McAllister maybe? There was like a almost like knee-high boot on him, I think, and that, I think some people thought that could have been a red card. The Mitoma one, yeah, I think, I guess without being too cliched, you've seen them given, you've seen them not given. So I don't know. I think that just the main takeaway for me was that Darren England and his officials did not have a great game. Fulham definitely defended very well, but De Zerbi said, there was basically only one team in it, and Silva said Brighton were by definitely the better team. So yes, it's one that got away.
It is. And look, we played back-to-back games against our bogey teams as well, in Palace and in Fulham, and that there are bogey teams for a reason. And we saw that last weekend. We saw that the weekend before that. 1 point from 6 isn't great, but now we've got a bit of a break. No Newcastle away trip, no weekend away in the Toon. So we've got a bit of time to just reset ourselves and just look ahead. Fortunately, that might help us out a little bit more going into the FA Cup match against Stoke midweek, which will bode well for most of us, hopefully. So hopefully we could get a really strong side out over at the Bet365 Stadium, and hopefully we could book ourselves a place in the quarterfinals. But I'm not going to tempt fate down that line. But look, let's go back to the Fulham match anyway, because we're not even done there, are we? Because a lot happens at the end of the match as well from De Zerbi.
Yes. So, interesting enough, after the final whistle blew, walking down the tunnel, De Zerbi was given a red card by Darren England. Basically, because of his following his protestations over his performance, the referee's performance. So, it's interesting. Sometimes when you go to a post-match press conference, the quotes from the manager are actually much more interesting in defeat, or if something controversial happens, whatever. And in the build up to this game on the Friday, De Zerbi met with referees chief Howard Webb for a couple of hours, and Webb, obviously former Premier League referee, explained to him some VAR decisions, because obviously it came out that the Purvis Stupinyan's goal against Crystal Palace should have been given. It was a big mistake from the VAR team. They drew the wrong line. Real cock up. And so he met for a couple of hours, and he was fairly complimentary about Webb, and he said, I appreciated his honesty and admitting the mistake and coming out and trying to be proactive. He struck a very, very different tone after the game, and I'm just going to read you some pretty emotive quotes from De Zerbi. So he said, I told the referee, Darren England, that this week I had a meeting with his boss, Howard Webb, and I lost time. I lost 2 to 3 hours of work. I didn't like the attitude of the referee. I think it's not a good level of referee, but I think the refereeing in the Premier League is not good enough for this very important league. He said, I didn't say a bad word against him. I want to be clear. If you want to have a meeting with me and take up 2 hours of my time and work, you have to have a different attitude on the pitch. If you are a referee and I am a coach, if you want to improve your football, improve your work in football, you have to have another attitude. I can't have I can't have one opponent saying a bad word, and I won't repeat this word. The referee doesn't have the personality to keep controlling the game. And then my favorite bit, one time I lost time with this meeting, and it will not happen again. I am not in England to fool around with these meetings. So yeah, he was not holding back, and it's a fair point, because you've just had he's De Zerbi has spoken in the past about making use of every single second to improve your team and really putting in the hard yards, and he had to I can't. It would be interesting to have been a fly on the wall in that meeting, but a couple of hours of his time is taken up with Howard Webb, and then the points that he raised then reared their ugly head again, and nothing seems to get done, if not worse. So yeah, he must have been tearing his hair out at that, and it was good to watch. He also, I think, joked that he loves receiving a red card, for this sort of thing. So yeah, he didn't hold back, and fair play to him.
Yeah, look, he's a very, very charismatic man. He's not afraid to voice his opinion, regardless of the consequences of it. I think that's why a lot of Brighton fans love him. I think that's why a lot of fans from his previous employers love him too. He's very passionate. He very much understands where the fans come from, and he seems like he wants to just be that voice between the coach to the other channels that fans just don't have the opportunity to, and that includes the referee. It's annoying that he's got a red card from it, because that's a potential touchline ban there, at least one match. So he's probably going to be out for the De Zerbi match, for the trip to Stoke. Hopefully, it's only just the one. I hate to hear if it's 3 or something like that. But it depends what he actually said. Well, what the referee alleges for De Zerbi to have said to him. It again, it's annoying. But I get his frustrations. We should have beaten Palace, and VAR got it wrong when they shouldn't have. It's basics, really. When you're at that level, you need to do the basics right, and they took their time with that decision as well. I think it's important to point out. And watching it on the highlights, it's clearly obvious that he was on side and they drew the wrong lines. And then when you come into this match after having this clear and open conversation with the head of refereeing for the PMGOL in Howard Webb, and then you see this match, that the display that Darren England had, which was questionable at times, you are going to be frustrated because you feel like the 2 hours conversation that you had has just been a waste of time. So I totally get where De Zerbi's come from. He's had this sit down chat. I mean, fair play to Webb for being approachable, accountable, and honest. I think that's very refreshing because his counterpart, his predecessor, was nothing like that at all. He was basically like someone who had his head stuck in the sand. Webb just confronts everything head on and just explains everything, and he put his hands up and apologized on behalf of the refs, which is great. It's the right step. So I won't take that away from Howard Webb there, but then you see this performance from Darren England. Hopefully, it doesn't get repeated. We haven't really had this kind of performance though this season from Brighton. We've been quite fortunate in that sense. So hopefully, this is just an anomaly in all of this. But we'll wait and see. We'll move on anyway because De Zerbi also made some more comments which were quite interesting, in the form of Adam Lallana, whose season's probably more or less written off now because of his injury setback, which is a shame because he's been fantastic for us all season and he's fitted in really well with De Zerbi, I feel. And I think he's a superb asset for the squad, not just on the pitch, but off the pitch as well and in the dressing room.
Yeah, like you say, yeah, massive blow. So I think if people who went to the game, I think he was on crutches and had sort of a brace of sorts on his leg. So obviously before the game, De Zerbi said that it was more likely that Lallana would be out with, I think, his hamstring injury for months, not weeks, which is a real shame because I think you'd agree, Tom, that he's playing the best football he's played since signing for the club back in 2020. He's not far off 35 and he's playing some brilliant football. So obviously he's a big loss. But yes, so after the game, De Zerbi said it could be Lallana is finished for the season. It's bad news for us because Adam is one of the most important players. We can win without him, but he's still very important. You have to ask the medical team, but they told me the possibility of him playing this season was not likely. So that's, really feel for him because, as I said, he's been playing some really, really fantastic stuff. I do actually think that Brighton's midfield is actually missing him for it. I don't quite think if the triumvirate of Caicedo, McAllister, and Gross works as well. I think Lallana having that sort of more attacking, silky skills up top, that pressing ability as well. I think that was a better balance, and I don't quite know if the three of them worked as well. But obviously, they definitely got on top of Fulham, but I still think that they maybe didn't create as many good chances as they could have, maybe if Lallana was there. So yeah, what do you reckon? Do you think how big a blow is it for Brighton? I guess.
Oh, I think it's huge. You can't write off Adam Lallana's contribution he has on the pitch. He's so technically brilliant on the ball. It's just a shame that his career has been marred by a lot of injuries. This is a guy that Jurgen Klopp said on record he's technically the best player he's ever worked with. That I think that quote alone shows just how good Adam Lallana is and is technically gifted as a football player. The way he's able to contribute himself and set an example and set the standard for the likes of Caicedo and McAllister in the midfield as well. And the link-up play he has in attack as well has been fantastic this season and in past, despite the fact that he's had to be set back quite a fair few times because of his injuries. And I just look back to that Liverpool win, just how good he was in that match in the league. He was just someone that was just he knew the positions he needed to be in. He read the game so well, and like you say, he's 35 years old, but he's still able to put in
Oh
a
yeah,
really decent
in a few months off.
nearly 35. Again, like he's such a big asset to the team. His contract's running out at the end of the season, so it would be a shame for him to go and bow out like this, because I think he still can put in a shift in for us.
Yeah, and sort of segueing onto a previous bit from what he said in the past. I think last year he basically said he would like to play for a number more, a few more years, which is good to see. And in this form, why not? There's also been a lot of talk about him being a future manager, and he did obviously step up to be as a sort of an interim first team coach when Graham Potter went to Chelsea in September with under 21 boss Andrew Crofts. But I think, he still feels that he's got a bit more to give in this game. He's not done yet. And on the contract thing, so you're right, Tom, he is out of contract this year. On Friday, I asked De Zerbi if he wanted to keep Lallana, who's out of contract, Veltman, who's out of contract, although I do believe he has Brighton have an option to extend his contract by a further year, and Van Heck is also out of contract this summer. So I basically said, do you want to keep them? And he said yes. And I've chatted to Tony about that, Tony Bloom. And so similar comments, but specifically on Lallana, he said, I want Lallana with me for sure, 100%. I already spoke with Tony Bloom and I told him to extend his contract. So, I hope this is not the last time he plays for a Brighton shirt. It will, it sounds like it is probably a serious injury if he's out for the season. I guess if you're, at his age, so he will be 35 then, maybe just having a long-term target of focusing on the start of next season, so August, to get yourself right rather than sort of maybe rushing back for May time is the smart way to go. But his overall presence on and off the pitch, I'm doing an article on this later this week, but Paul Barber said that one of the reasons why Lallana was given that sort of first team interim role was because he didn't, in the lockdown season, he had no idea how loud Lallana is on the pitch and how much he organises and tells his teammates what to do. And he was impressed by that back in 2020. And I think that played in his mind. And and he said that, he was outstanding during his sort of very brief coaching spell. So, really, really feel for him. Speedy recovery, but obviously it's important that he gets the time he needs to get back, and hopefully Brighton do give him a contract. Do you think it'll be, if they do you think it'll be a one year or a two? What do you reckon?
Probably a 1 year with an option for another that can be exercised by the player in the club. I do think that we should at least keep him, because we've got there's the potential of Caicedo gone, McAllister going. We need to keep our best players, and Lallana's been such a fantastic influence that I think that he'll rub on well for Kundo Buonanotte and potentially any other midfielder that will be interested in it. Maybe Steven Alzate might be able to shine after his loan spell. So who knows? But personally, I think if we could keep Lallana, that'd be fantastic.
Yes. So I guess moving ahead, obviously Brighton don't play this weekend. As you said, Tom, the Newcastle game that they were supposed to play was obviously postponed because of Newcastle getting into the Carabao Cup final. So no game this weekend. They've got, nearly a week and a half off. Do you think this break comes at a good time for them, or do you think it's more like they have to sit on a bad result for a week or so?
I think it's a good one. It's just frustrating the fact that it's going to be yet another match that we're going to have rescheduled. I don't know where it's going to be rescheduled during the break, and we're going to have the additional headache of if we progress through to the quarterfinals, or I believe if it's Man United that progress through to quarterfinals as well, we've got another match that's going to be rescheduled. So that there's a lot of there's plenty of headaches going ahead that could well be are in our control, but also not at the same time. I think having that extra weekend where we could just have a breather and just kind of say to ourselves, right, have a day off, reflect, then afterwards it's back to the business at hand, because we're two very bad results, and it's through I don't think it's through any fault of our own. Palace was unfair, Fulham was unfair. You know, we could cry and whinge all about it and throw our toys out the pram as much as I did on Saturday night. But look, you know, that I think that's why we just love the game so much, because we're so emotionally invested in it that we would just moan and whinge when it's bad, and we're on cloud nine when it's the good times. That's that's just the essence of being a football fan in the beautiful game. But look, De Zerbi's going to be that guy who's going to motivate everyone and just be like, right, guys, come on, we've got another run of games, we've got an FA Cup to distract ourselves from the league for a little bit. Let's just focus on that, and I think that's what he's going to do. So I think this is this could well be a turning point in our season.
Oof, like that. Good note to end on. So, yes, thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back maybe later this week, maybe the start of next week, to do a sort of Stoke preview. But yeah, hopefully Brighton can move on and bounce back with a thrashing of Stoke City. Touch wood. But yes, thanks for listening, guys, and keep on watching and listening to teams like Brighton.